So we'd like to welcome you to Next 365's presentation on the Supplier Communication Agent from Microsoft. We'll be covering several different topics today, including the agent itself, and we'll show you use cases and examples, along with how you're managing agents within the Dynamics environment. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the technical requirements. There are some that exist to put in here, and we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to put them into the question and answer box, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. I am your host today. My name is Mike Petersen. I'm Chief Technology Officer for North America for Next 365. Been doing ERP for 27 years, most of it in the Microsoft and pre-Microsoft environment, and also been working specifically with Dynamics 365 and AX before that for almost 18 of those years. With me today, I have Van Law. She's one of our senior specialists. Van's direction mostly is within the finance area, but she's worked in a lot of spaces within the Dynamics platform, including projects, and also the procurement area, which is what we'll be discussing today. Her background goes all the way back into Exapta 3.0. We've also got Terry Boehm on who will be monitoring the Q&A, and will be moderating that at the end of the presentation. So who is Next 365? For those of you that don't know, Next 365 is a global organization. We're currently present in 9 different countries and continuing to expand. We bring high-end resources into the client side of engagements, and we also foster long-term work with clients in assisting them in keeping up to date in their ERP system and bringing in new features and capabilities and integrating that. We can also handle program management, change management, things of that variety for implementations. So today we're going to be talking about the procurement process. There's some significant challenges that come with the procurement process. I'm going to turn this over to Van for her to actually discuss that. Van?
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. Today, we'll talk about some of the challenges in the procurement processes within organizations. Organizations are trying to do more with fewer people, or they're trying to increase the productivity of the team that they do have. So when you tacked on these organizational goals on top of manual processes, what you get is a declining workforce that are faced with increasing workflow that's facing burnout. Okay, so this is a high-level illustration of the procurement process and where in the process it requires a human interaction, right? So imagine sending out a purchase order to your supplier and you haven't heard from them about these POs for some time, so you have to go and kind of nudge them and say, hey, are you able to fulfill these orders by the requested date? Sometimes have passed, and let's say you receive the PO confirmation from them saying that, yes, we can fulfill your order by the requested date, for the widgets that you've ordered at the quantity you've ordered at the price point you ordered, right? Or they're like, hey, for whatever reason, they no longer stock a particular item. Some items are on backlog, or they just need to push some of the quantities out, or the price have changed. But for whatever reason, a change to your purchase order is required. And they send that over to you, and you need to go in and you need to make those updates into your application, right? So let's assume that the PO are updated and confirmed. So sometimes have passed, and now the confirmed ship date has arrived, and you have received no shipment into your warehouse for those items. So what do you do again? Now you need to go back into the application. You need to identify those purchase orders, and you need to communicate with those suppliers again. Now, each of these points require a human action in some shape or form, either with your supplier or in your application. Right, and that can be time consuming. So let's go see how the supplier communication agent can help us automate some of these interactions. Okay, so what is the supplier communication agent? Microsoft defines it as a tool that uses AI to automate many communications with vendors. So what does that mean? Think about the task that needs to be executed when you receive an email from a supplier as an example. Okay, so you get an email from the vendor. You read the email and you try to figure out what vendor and what purchase orders are being referenced. So that's an inference that you have to make. And then you read the content and you figure out, okay, what pieces of data do you need to extract from the email so that you know what updates you need to make into your application. Then you got to go into your application. You have to look up the vendor, you have to look up the PO, and then go in and make those changes to the application on those purchase orders. So on the reverse side of that, right, when we are sending the emails to the suppliers, we have to then go into the application and mine the data, right? Mine the POs that have not been confirmed or mine the POs that have not been delivered, and then include those data out in the emails that goes out to the suppliers. So none of these tasks are particularly highly complex, but there is a degree of variability in them. So whether in the presentation of the email or presentation or in how we mine the data, but there is some of that, right? So that the supplier agent can help us manage. Okay, so let's now take a look at the same high-level procurement process illustration again, but this time where there was a human interaction touch point, the AI can now replace that, right? So now the agents can identify the data that needs to go out in an email to the suppliers, or the agent can come in and read the email and summarize the changes so that we can make those updates in the application. So let's talk about the use cases. So we talk about how the AI can replace those human touch points. So what does that mean exactly? So for the outbound communication to the vendors, for the emails that goes out to the vendors, so instead of us having the human user, right, having to comb through the data on the screen by going in the application or generating some sort of report or doing an inquiry of your 365, app to identify what purchase orders need follow-up, the agent can go and identify the vendors that haven't confirmed the purchase orders that we need to send, that we need updates on. The agent can identify which purchase orders that we haven't received deliveries on, right? The past confirmed date, right? And then so that we can send those email out. So in addition to the identification of this data, the agent can also draft the email. So they can actually put this data into an email that can then be reviewed and then sent to the supplier. Okay, right now I mentioned that we can, the human user is reviewing the email, right? And in a later slide, I'll talk about the automation of the email sending to make this a even more automated process. So to go back just a little bit, so we talked about the outbound communication. So for the inbound communication from the suppliers, right, the agent can scan your inbox, read the email from the supplier, and extract the pieces of data that needed to be updated and suggest the changes for your review. Now, upon the human user review and confirmation, the agent can then go in and update the application for the POs for us, right? So all of these tasks are done without you, the human, actually having to generate a report to get the data or touch a PO within the application to make those updates. So we talked about the variability earlier. So let's look at some examples of how the emails can come in and how the agent can handle those variability. Okay, so I have an example email from perhaps a larger organization that can send something like this. Their emails tends to be a little bit concise. They use directed language. They can potentially have high volumes of data. The PO data that needed to be confirmed or updated or presented in an attachment, right? So I have an example, a snapshot of a PDF that the data are presented in a table in rows and columns. Okay, so right now I have this in PDF. One thing I will mention is that right now the agent can handle or they can infer data or extract data from PDF attachments. Word and Excel are on the roadmap for a future release. Okay, so another example, a semi-formal email from a medium or a smaller size organization where their sales team, your sales team, right, the organization sales team, they can have multiple people, right? So when they send out the email, they can be in consistent formats. You have maybe one person being a little bit more directed, another person being a little bit more casual in their tone of the email. Even in the presentation of the PO data, they could be in attachments, they could be in tables, and the tables could be a bullet list, they could be in, whatever format that you can think of, right? But regardless of whether it's an attachment or embedded within the body of the email, the agent can go in and it still reads through and extracts the data. Okay, so lastly, I have a very informal email, okay, maybe from a standalone mom and pop shop, very casual tone in the email. Maybe they talk about other things. Maybe they inquire about your weekend or they talk about the weather before they going into talking about the business. Regardless, the agent can still go in and ignore, right, all of the non-business content and extract the pieces of data that are specific to the PO so that they can make updates to the application for you. Okay, so we talked about the variability, what the supplier communication agent does or can do. Okay, so we'll talk about the user experience. When you log into 365 F&O, you get this immersive homepage once you have the supplier communication agent feature turned on. This immersive homepage replaces the standard out-of-the-box homepage that you get with the calendar and the banner and the tiles, right? So you still get the same information. You still get your workspaces that you can click to. You still get the list of actions that are requiring your I should say, a list of work items assigned to you waiting for your action. But what I really do want to call your attention to is the agent activity that is in the upper right-hand corner with the two tiles. So when you click on the follow-up tile, what you then get is this screen, right? So on your left-hand side, very familiar look and feel user experience that you get for those of us already working within the F&O app. On the left-hand side, you get a list of all the emails that were drafted by the agent waiting for the human user to review. And then on your right-hand side, you get fast taps, right? So your first fast tap for review tells you exactly what happened, what transpired. It drafted an email. Who is it for? It's for Acme office supplies. And what does it need? It needs review. And then on the bottom is the actual drafted email. By the agent. This is ready for you to make edits to it, for you to make any changes to it before you send them out. Now, one thing that I talked about is that this is an agent, right? So as the system, I should say, as the agent generate more of these draft emails, and as the human user goes in and make edits, the agent will learn, right? It's an AI. It will learn your style, right? So that in the future, as more of these emails are sent out, the agent will learn your style, and then there will be less opportunity or less need for you to update the email. And once you have a high degree of confidence that the emails are being drafted with little to no edits from you, you can then enable the functionality to automatically send out the email, making this process even more automated, right? Taking that last mile human touch and just completely make it touch-free. Okay, so we go back to the immersive homepage and click on the purchase order updates tile. It'll take us to a different screen. Okay, this is the PO screen. So this is the part where the agent goes, scans your email, and figures out what POs and what data needs to be changed. Okay, so same look and feel, but the data is are different. So on the left-hand side is a list of all the POs that needed to be changed, and then on the right-hand side are the changes. So you can see that the changes are separated into header and lines. And you can see that the first line, the blue, is the current, the current state of the PO in the application. And then the second line tells you what changes were detected, what changes are needed to be made or proposed by the agent. And then what's awesome that I find really a nice control is on the bottom of the screen is the actual snippet of the email. So you can go, you can review the actual email, the language, and verify, confirm if the agent actually detected or picked out or extract the right pieces of data that needed to be updated. And if you agree to to what was suggested, then you can click on yep, go ahead and apply the changes, and it will update your PO for you. Again, you don't actually have to go into the PO yourself. You just go into this immersive home, look at the changes, and then make the update. Okay, so talk about the agent management. So how does the agent figure out what needs to be updated? The agents identify the purchase orders via inquiries that are specific to the user. So I don't know if you can recall, but on the immersive homepage, you have those work items assigned to you that's specific to you, right? So that's for all of the even the agent activities. Transactions are specific to the users. Microsoft out of the box will deliver 2 agents or 2 predefined queries for you, specifically the unconfirmed purchase orders and the delayed purchase orders. And you can go and you can modify the queries under these 2 agents to fit your business process. And you can create as many agents as you need to fit your business case, right? And one of the things I talked about earlier, I mentioned a couple of times, is the automatic sending emails. Right now, out of the box, you can review and you can send the drafted emails after you make the edits. But once you've done more of these, the agent learns about your style, and you find that the drafted emails require less edits from you, and you build a higher confidence that it's drafted correctly, then you can turn on the feature to send out the emails automatically. Okay, so the agents, I mentioned about the library, right? So if you go into the agent's workspace, you see these 2 views. The manages a list of all the agents that your organizations have enabled. The library is a list of all the agents that Microsoft delivers out of the box for you. Now, as you first implement, you're not going to have anything under the Manage tab. So you want to go to the library, make edits to one of the standard out of the box agents. And then once you activate them, then they become available under the Manage for you to then further refine as time passes. Okay, so talked about queries. So how do you configure or set up one of these agents? So before you activate them, you open up the agent and you supply filters, right? So in this agent, as an example, it says draft an email to follow up on unconfirmed purchase orders per vendor using formal and non-urgent tone with this field, right? So everywhere you see a blue text or where there is blue text, those are hyperlinks, those are drop downs. So when you click on them, it gives you the edit criteria. So if you worked with Dynamics before, neither as a functional or technical, this is unfamiliar. This should not be. My gosh, I'm having a blank. So this should be familiar to you, right? So the list of tables, the list of fields on tables, the operations, the is, not is, between, all of those are the same as if you were to build any sort of criteria within the application. So once you open up, you put in the application on today's date within this range, or between this range, or is not. So you put all of those filters in, or those criteria in, and you say okay. The other thing is you want to configure a recurrence pattern, right? So again, familiar functionality. How often do you want this agent to run? Every hour, every 4 hours? So once you set up all of that, you save your settings, your configurations, and you activate it, then your agents will run according to those criteria that you've just defined. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mike to talk about the technical requirements to use this agent.
you, Van. So, while most of the technical requirements in here are not particularly high, and a lot of organizations will have already implemented them, there are a couple of important version requirements that exist. Particular Copilot version environments that you have to have into your system. You also have to be on 10.0.44, which is the April release that just came out. It's important to note that while these agents have released in North America, they are rolling out globally. It's possible it's not available in all areas yet, but Microsoft is very quickly rolling this out to all locations. The other things that are important to note, Dataverse, this is how the agent interacts with the data within your SCM environment, along with Copilot Studio, which is where the agent is running. You have to have an email provider. We're sending email back and forth. You have to have Exchange or some other third-party email provider set up, as well as Power Automate, and that's kind of the glue that holds everything together. Having said that, most of these technologies are ones that organizations have already set up and are using with Dynamics 365. If you're not potentially having put in an older implementation of the environment, setting them up is not a very high bar. It's mostly how you wire them together and things of that variety, most of which is configuration. So here's an overall view of the technical architecture for inbound emails. Again, first party, meaning Exchange or third party email providers, it doesn't matter. When you talk about the Dataverse server-side sync, that is Power Automate and having flows that pull in your email and put it into the Dataverse so that Copilot Studio has access to it. Copilot Studio, again, is running within Dataverse. These days, a very standard component tied to Dynamics 365. If you, again, have not implemented it, it's not a very high bar, not a lift, but all the work gets done on evaluating those emails and deciding what it is that needs to happen, because your F&O data is also inside of Dataverse and available to the agent. And then it pushes that data into supply chain, into the procurement process. So when you're working in the other direction, outbound, it's very similar. We actually, and this is from, these slides are from Microsoft, they removed the email portion of this, but that looks exactly the same with Microsoft Flow. The data goes back and forth between the agent and the F&O environment so that you can have those specific touch points that Van mentioned. If you've automated the email, potentially you're looking at a case where it's not going back and forth to F&O quite the same way to be able to do this, but it just pushes the information back and forth into Dataverse, which again is configurable as opposed to having to be developed to push that information out. And then it pushes the email out into your first or third party email system. So none of these are complex lifts. It's a very similar structure to how all agents that Microsoft puts out are going to work in Dynamics F and SCM. I think what's important to note in this one is you've got the additional step of the external communication through the email. Once this structure is set up, though, you should be at a point where you can consume any agent with very minor configuration changes potentially to that tech stack. So a couple of things that are important coming out of this, couple of final thoughts. Agentic AI. Microsoft Satya has made very clear that this is the direction that Microsoft is going with their business applications. Customers are going to be interacting through agents with their ERP system. Agents will be doing things. It's just the next level of automation. If you have integrations currently, if you have any instances where you've had a customization that does 2 or 3 steps in a standard business process, it's the same thing that we're dealing with here. The agentic AI is just more capable than those particular automations are. It will produce cost savings and productivity improvements, just like any automation. There's a reason you asked for those 3 steps not to be in the process. So that allows the human users to provide higher value and working on value-added tasks rather than having to do just the repetitive and mundane. And again, it's important to note we have an upgraded tech stack. It's important that you get this tech stack set up correctly, because it's not just going to be this agent. Microsoft is going to continue to roll out new agents. It's going to continue to use the same tech stack on all of them. So I am going to turn this over to Terry, and we're going to see if there are any questions that are out there right now.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Van. Yes, we do have a couple questions. And the first one is the language from the PO taken into account when creating the follow-up email, such that, for example, if the PO language is in German, then the follow-up message would be created in German?
So I can actually take that one. And yes, Microsoft has actually made it very, very plain that their Copilot can translate to any of these languages, 140 languages, I believe they said they have right now, or something of that variety. Any language that Copilot can speak to you in, the AI has the capability of generating. And while I don't know this for sure, this is a supposition, but I think a reasonably good one, is that what it will do is detect the language that the application is in, and it will respond in that language. It can also do a translation between that language and other ones. If there's not currently a setup, I suspect there eventually will be, that goes to the language that's set up on the vendor to make a determination what the outgoing language is going to be on these particular things, and you can set that up. So that's a long answer to say yes. I believe it. I believe it is going to send that out in German, send it out into your local languages, and the structure itself is capable of doing so.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next question is, can you see based on the PO that a message has been sent to the vendor?
Okay.
I believe from the immersive homepage, once you go into the follow-up tab tile, you will be able to see that the email has been sent out.
Okay, thanks, Van. And then what happens in the case that I receive a confirmation from a supplier and they use different article numbers or their own article number? Can I create a mapping, or does the solution use the external article numbers?
In this particular case, solution would use the external article numbers that are set up within your vendor, the vendor item lookup combination, to look for the external item numbers. So it's utilizing that F&O data to be able to pull it across. And obviously Microsoft has a good understanding of what those are, so it would be able to access the external number, assuming it's of course configured within your system.
Okay, thank you. And did you want to comment, Mike, on the availability of the Supplier Communications Agent today?
So I mentioned at one point that it's currently rolled out in North America. Microsoft has said that their intent is to roll out globally rapidly, and it could be in a lot of different areas already. I haven't checked this morning. Microsoft does tend to move fast on these things. But any of these agents, it looks like Microsoft's standard process so far is rolling them out in North America, letting North America be guinea pigs for how this works, and then rolling it out to the rest of the globe. My suspicion is that's tied to some of the data residency requirements and things of that variety that are associated with other areas. It's much simplified from that standpoint, running it out in North America before it runs out to the rest of the globe.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's it.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the Next 365 Supplier Communication Agent webinar. If you have any interest whatsoever in participating in a demo of the functionality and the capabilities, please feel free to reach out to myself or Terry. Our emails are here on this slide. And also, if we do provide a one-day workshop for clients to help them build a business case as to why these agents are going to be helpful within their organization and how they're going to provide value, to allow you to go and make the case for why you should be moving to these agents. We also have the capability of doing a deeper dive, both technically and personnel-wise, along with business processes, and do a readiness assessment on your organization to absorb the capabilities within these various agents and how they work. We would ask you to please follow us on LinkedIn and also join us for doing another webinar on the account reconciliation agent on July 29th. So keep an eye out on LinkedIn, and the invite will be on LinkedIn very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.